Hello and welcome to our this week's Brownback session. Today we welcome the ecologist Vanessa Berger from ECO, Institute of Ecology in Klagenfurt. Vanessa worked in a project at the ECO assessing ecosystem services that are provided by the properties of the Austrian Federal Forestry Company. Today, she will be talking about the mapping, monitoring, and evaluation of those ecosystem services using GIS systems. So Vanessa, may I pass the word to you with a question? How do you assess forest ecosystem services? You have to switch on your microphone.
Yeah, maybe. That would be great. Also from my side, welcome. I want to present our project about the Federal Forest of Austria. So I try to share my screen. Can everyone see? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So at first, I want to talk about what are the ecosystems. So what's the concept about the ecosystem services, contributions of ecosystems to benefit obtained in economic, social, cultural, and other human activity. So in there, we have our provisioning services like the biomass as timber, then the regulation and maintenance services. So it's the erosion control, flood protection, and the cultural services. It's about the recreation benefits, tourism, or the conservation of biodiversity. So we assess the ecosystem services for the Austrian Federal Forest. This is a public enterprise which have managed about 30% of the Austrian forest, which is about 10% of the national territory. And as you can see, the area is widely spread about Austria. And in there, we assess the lumbering, so the timber production. To assess the lumbering, we have here the amount of harvested timber. So also we separated in industrial timber, then in round timber, and the firewood. By assessing the amount of timber, you can calculate how many euro you get out of the forest in this ecosystem service. Then the next one was the erosion control. In here, we had a look of the protective forests for the residential and the commercial areas, as well for infrastructure. So it's important to know where is the area where we have to where we need the erosion control. So when we have a forest, we don't need to make buildings to control the erosion. Then the next one was the carbon storage. In here, we had a look of we have in our forest, also the amount of timber in there. And so we calculated the forest area and the timber which is stored in the forest. So we didn't get out for timber productions. Then the next one was the local recreation. In here, we had a look where we are going to hike and for cycling, and how far we go for those things. So the number of visitors, which are recreations in the forest, and how far they go from the settlement, so just by day. In here, we calculated the average distance to the forest for the local recreation. This was based on the naturalness of the forest. So in here, it's not only how far you can go and what you can do out there, it's also how is the naturalness of the forest? Do you like to see those forests, or is it a forest you do not want to recreate in there? Then for tourism, we had our number of overnight stays, and we also calculated the travel cost of the tourists and the willingness to pay for an improvement of the closeness to nature and the landscape improved naturalness of the forest ecosystems. Then the next ecosystem service we calculated was the structural to the conservation biodiversity. So in here, we calculated the structural biodiversity potential for the non-forest areas and also the structural biodiversity for the potential forest. So in the forest, it's the age of the forest, then the vertical layering, then the species mixture, then the amount of the protected areas, then the species richness, and also the fragmentation of the forest. Then in the end, so I just told you about the most significant ecosystem survey. We have here just 6 out of 17. But in the end, the range of the benefits of the most significant ecosystem services, so the value of nature, we calculated not only for our baseline, so the baseline was about 2016. We also calculated our scenarios for an intensification of the forest. Then another one was ecology and economy, where they try to balance ecological important things like protected areas, high species richness, also with economic values. And then another scenario was about the extension of nature conservation. So this was the value of nature for our federal forest. And in here, we can see in the end, when we sum up all our values, we have for the intensified forest a loss about 90 millions. Then for the scenario ecology and economy, an increase of the value of nature for 55 millions. And for the extension of nature conservation, it's increased about 180 millions. So you can see also the value of nature here. It's not only the lumbering. So lumbering means the amount of timber we can sell and we get money out of it. It's also the erosion control, the carbon storage, the local recreation, and the tourism where we get value out of it. It's not money, but for the human well-being, also those ecosystem services are very important. And as you can see, also the carbon storage in here is not that huge volume like the conservation of biodiversity, but also carbon storage is very important. Also, if we have in mind about the climate change. So do you have, so it's just a short presentation because it is such a huge project. It was more than 5 years we calculated for these ecosystem services, and it's about 400 pages. And so it's just a small summary. And I would like to go a little bit more in the discussion because we assess our ecosystem services with GIS. So you saw there were our maps. So we calculated the amount of timber for smaller forest areas and summed up it in the end. And in this project, we got our baseline data from the Austrian Federal Forest. So we didn't assess the ecosystem service in the forest. We just calculated the ecological value, and then we calculated the monetary value. So do you have some questions?
Will ensure nature conservation in the 21st century. Be part of the new 4-semester part-time master program. Carinthia University of Applied Sciences.